Um, Tonight, we're revisiting Harb 2011-18, 40 Luella Court, demolish existing garage and build one 24-car underground garage with trash room ramp and steps attached to existing building. The Board of Commissioners had asked the applicant to come back and have us clarify a few things, and I was wondering if, Matt, could you go through those issues, perhaps?
I'm sorry, Cam, I've just sat down here. Sorry about that. Could you repeat the question, please?
The Board of Commissioners has asked the applicant to come back and talk about specific issues that they wanted clarification on.
Yes, there was
spoken.
Yeah, there was confusion last time with respect to the steps. I believe it was on the east side of the building. The steps, members of the public believed, and the commissioners agreed with it, that those weren't properly discussed in terms of being a part of the structure. What's going to happen to the steps? Are they going to disappear? Are they going to be remain part of the structure? They just felt uncomfortable with that going forward, that should be part of this discussion tonight. In addition, I think now is an opportunity, if their attorney believes so, that to talk about any of the other outstanding issues while we're here, whether that's the windows or any of these things that whether by itself they don't need to be discussed about, but this is part of the overall package, that now's the time to talk about it. And then finally get this to the Board of Commissioners so everything is talked about tonight. So there's no questions that linger on July 18th if this goes back to them. Okay, does that make sense?
I don't think we can talk about the whole building tonight.
Then that's fine. If you don't feel that's necessary, then that's fine.
I don't think the applicant's prepared to do that.
Okay.
And I don't think the application doesn't state that.
Okay, then that's the board's call, but that's just kind of what's been articulated to me, but I wanted to relay it to you, but that's the board's decision on that.
I mean, I agree that it would be better in the future to get a whole, a one-time look at things, so you're looking at the full package, but
right.
We've started this process. We need to finish this piece of it.
Yeah.
And then we will go to the next piece.
And to reiterate, this isn't a new application. It's the same application you looked at. Again, I think that there were pieces of this puzzle that perhaps, again, the steps that weren't discussed. And so that could be discussed tonight, okay?
Was that the only issue?
That was the only issue from my understanding, right, Dave?
So, as much as I appreciate Matt's synopsis, I have to disagree slightly. And I'm glad that Commissioner Nagel is here, because he was one of the commissioners that had some questions about this issue, and I'm glad he's here in case I misspeak. But as I understood it, it was a question as to whether or not, and the neighbors could probably help too, they wanted to know about both sets of steps, both the east and the west, and whether they had been discussed at the previous Harb meeting, and whether when the Harb voted to grant their certificate of appropriateness for this application, they were aware, specifically aware, that the steps on the side of the building where the garage would connect and the windows would be removed, as shown on the plan. And the commissioners were not convinced that that was appropriately discussed or considered by this board. We respectfully disagreed, and that's where we butted heads. They said, you know what, it would just be easier to go back and ask the Harb, were you aware that those windows were going to go away? Were you aware the steps were going to go away when you made this vote? We maintain our position that we didn't address the steps on the other side of the building because we don't have any idea whether those steps are going to be removed. It's since been brought to my attention they're not going to be removed. They're going to be left as part of a, what's the phrase, John? A landscaping aspect to the building, so those steps are going to stay.
That's the western?
The western steps. That was another issue that was brought up by the neighbors. Again, that was not part of the last application. We aren't going to take them away at this point, so we don't believe there's any reason to discuss that. Another issue that was vocalized at the commissioners was, do we need to discuss windows if we refurbish the windows? And Matt said no, that's not something that normally comes before the Harb. If anybody else were doing this to their home, they wouldn't have to come here. Roof, no. So we think the only issue, like it was before when we were here, is this garage and the connection to the building. So we want to be clear, we've got the same plans y'all saw before, that those windows on the side and the steps, they're going to go away, and the garage is going to be underground and attaching to the building there. So that's my understanding of how the evening went, and it was go back and make sure that they were aware of what you were presenting, and when they voted, they were fully informed We still, again, maintain the position. We are not here to discuss the building because nothing that we're going to be doing to that building falls under this board's purview.
Dave, do you happen to have the plan that was submitted on the underground garage showing where it would abut against the house?
The plan that I'm showing here shows the limit of link. This is the plan y'all received. And you can see here the grade area which shows where the garage is going to attach. And then when we flip, this is the same side, the east side elevation shows you don't see the windows or the steps.
What I recall, there was one taken from aerial view looking down.
There is, yes. I don't know. That type of aerial, George?
Yeah,
I think there was a mechanical, there's a
yeah.
site plan.
I think what it shows is that the garage is up against the house.
Yes. So here is an existing conditions and demolition plan. You can see the shaded area there, and then that plan also shows it from an aerial. I have it. That's next. And there's an actual photo, an aerial photo with the garage. And I don't know whether y'all can see it, but there are steps shown, and the connection is shown there. But because of the shadows and so forth, it's more difficult on the aerial photo.
Well, from the elevation, it looks like you're impacting the lower band and the baseline of the building, which are the kind of the lower level windows.
Is that the elevation here?
I think if you go to the one that shows existing and it's kind of shaded where the building touches, that one there, yeah.
Yes.
That one seems to be the clearest indicator of what's going to be covered up.
I agree.
And this side of the building is really the business end of the building. This is where the basement is accessed. This may have been where the coal chutes were. This is all those kinds of things that were happening there. You've got the fire escape, and any of the covering is below or just at that kind of granite line, that baseline that delineates the lower level from the main body. Is that correct?
It is. Cass has just pointed out to me that this, first window, I guess, towards the front of the mansion is not going to be concealed on the final plan. So that will be open.
Right.
It'll be 1, 2, 3 windows,
That's an areaway too, right?
Well, that's the door. That's
and that's
not a window.
a big window.
Yeah.
No,
There's
this is the
stairs
step.
going in.
Stair, that's the, this is the stairwell down, and this is the laundry room window. The actual patio, the flagstone patio that the fire escape will empty onto, and this doorway actually sits approximately 8 inches lower than the first floor because we can't be right at the first floor. So you step out onto the, each unit has a door that you can step out into the fire escape and then step down onto the patio. So this line is actually lower than the first floor elevation. On the architecturals, there's really a large blow-up
That's what I'm thinking of.
of the area. And what we discussed at the last meeting, this is where it attaches. You can see the one window being blocked. The window that you saw on the plan that David just showed you is this window. It actually sits far away from the underground garage. This, if you recall, when we had our first presentation, we had the trash room in this location, and it was the bridge from the above-ground garage. I don't mean to mention that, but I just want to explain that this area was changed because the garage floor is lower than the basement floor that we're going into. So you would come out of the garage, go up a short flight of steps, go into the basement, go down this hallway into the elevator right here. And then the elevator can access all 4 floors, the basement level and the 3 living levels. What we wanted to do was make it truly ADA accessible, even though it's not required with the pre-existing building. We wanted the building to be totally ADA accessible. So this area also has a ramp so that the homeowners can either use the steps or the ramp. You'll notice that we moved the trash room from this location, so this is only a pedestrian walkway between the garage and the existing building. And we moved the trash room over here for 2 reasons. We did not want to have 2 driveway entrances off of the Luella Court. With all of the recommendations from the neighbors, this board, the commissioners, we felt it was important to only have one access or driveway access point into this garage. And so we moved the trash room over here so that the trash could be picked up at the same location, as opposed to having 2 drives, one for the trash and one for the garage entrance. Right now, what exists is a driveway entrance for the existing parking lot and 2-car garage. Right here. So there's still only one driveway access into this area. It just happens to be on the other side of the street because that's the lower elevation. So, but my main reason was just to let you know that the trash room was moved from that connection point, which we discussed at the last meeting.
Cass, can you explain to everyone what exactly will be taken away, which set of stairs? Do you have any photos of what exists now, and explain,
Yes.
the tower that exists, and so that everyone has a clear idea of what is remaining and what is being replaced or taken away?
If he could zoom in on this, I think it would. This is the east side of the existing mansion. There are a set of concrete steps going up to this doorway. This is an existing unit. That doorway would not be an access to the new unit. And now, instead of going down a set of steps that does not have a railing and it's concrete, there's nothing historic other than it's a set of concrete steps that provided access into this unit. Then there's a set of concrete steps right here that lines up with the fire tower right here. So right now you come down the fire tower steps, and then you walk down a set of concrete steps to this area. And now they'll be walking right onto a flagstone patio and then right onto the lawn. So we've eliminated these 2 concrete steps. We've also eliminated the existing stairwell that goes into the basement, this door. And both this door and the door on the opposite end of the building on the north side, on the northwest wing, were added when the wings were put in. They were not part of the original structure.
And when were, excuse me, when were the stairways added, do you think, that you're taking away? And what condition are they in?
There's 2 stairways that go into the basement. This stairway is only access into the laundry room, and there's a unit. 4 of the 25 units are in the basement. And this door accesses into, I believe it's unit C1. On the other side, and I'll show you where that is. If you look at the existing conditions plan, this is the second stairwell. That actually accesses the fire egress because there's a fire tower that will remain in the building. Right at this location. So those steps will remain, this walkway will remain, because that provides fire access for the left wing. I'm sorry, fire egress for the left wing. So this stairwell and this stairwell were the 2 stairwells that were added at some time. We also believe this stairwell was added when this wing was added. So.
Yeah, I think the question was regarding the concrete steps?
Yeah.
Like, how old are they? When were they put in, the condition?
The concrete steps that I showed in the photograph, I would guess they're probably maybe 50 years old, or from the look of them. The 2 stairwells, the steps are actually of a bluestone for the 2 basement steps, so we believe they're older than the concrete steps.
But you are leaving the existing tower and the existing tower with the fire
Yes.
stairs.
Yes.
So
That-
really, the only thing then that's changing is you're taking out the 2 concrete stairs and the set of bluestone stairs, and you're replacing them with a connection that will allow people in the garage to go from the garage into the house.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yes.
And this level will then go directly out to the new plateau and the new garden.
Right. And then just in terms of the other stairs on the other side, as you had said in the beginning, I'm just clarifying this, that they will be kept in the square, what are they called? The square pilasters or whatever. They're not pilasters, but
There's monuments.
Are you talking about
on the west side, that all of that will
these
stay.
steps here?
Yeah, yeah.
Yes.
That will all stay.
There are columns. I have a
columns.
plan, and we submitted a plan after we attended
Okay.
the Shade Tree Commission. We had another meeting with the Shade Tree to allow the neighbors to voice their concerns at that meeting. But at that meeting, we presented this plan because our first Shade Tree meeting, we were given approval, but it was conditioned on, and if you don't mind, I'll flip this plan for a second. This was the first plan we submitted to this board and to the shade tree that showed a turnaround area right at the north main entrance. And the reason for that is Luella Court is one way and cars park on the outside boundary. So right now, a car, if it stops in front of the door to let people out, it stops traffic behind it. So we felt it was important for ingress and egress into the building, safety, to have a pullout. The shade tree was very concerned about the copper beech tree right here. And what we found out was, I was always taught that the drip line is the extent of the root system. I was wrong. The drip line of the beech extends, who knows. And what they really were concerned about, even though we were outside of the drip line right at this location, the shade tree asked us to move this. So what we did, because we knew we were asked to come back to allow the neighbors to comment, we revised the plan as per their recommendation. And you'll notice that we started the turnaround at the existing driveway location. That's one of the reasons I was pointing that out earlier, so that the pullout is here. We're well away from the tree. The other thing we have decided to do based on those comments of the Shade Tree Commission and the root system of the copper beech is we are leaving this walkway so to minimize any disturbance around the tree. So I know one or two of the neighbors, hated to see that walkway be removed. That walkway will remain. We'll refurbish it and make it look attractive, but it'll be in the exact same location. And you'll see that the existing steps on the west side will remain, and they show on this plan. And we're going to use that as a landscape element of the house. So, and it also shows that stairwell we talked about earlier right here in this walkway. I know there's been a lot of discussion at the numerous meetings that we've had about what was going to happen in that northwest quadrant of the property, and the answer is we're going to leave it just the way it is. Okay?
Any other comment from you guys?
No, I mean, I think that the way I'm understanding this is that we are talking about in terms of if the stairwell is removed, how historic are those stairs, and what kind of impact does that have on the rest of the building in terms of the historic aspects of the building. So I mean, I think that's really what we're here for. And I feel that the two stairs that are 50 years old and that were put in and that are in pretty bad condition are not really the significant historic aspects of the building. I mean, I think that there are a lot of other things on the building, of course, that make it historic and contributing and so forth, but those two sets of stairs I don't feel are significant. The third set, which was added when the building was enlarged, are more historic, but in my mind, there is the other set on the other side that's being kept. And to me, I don't feel that that really impacts the history or the way the building is being preserved. That's my feeling. I mean, how do you feel?
Well, I started
I
talking
agree.
about it earlier, is that this side is kind of the business end of the building. You know, it's access to the basement, it's access to the fire escape. It does have one apartment entry, but, you know, these are concrete stairs, and they were, you know, if this was done in the style of the rest of the building, they would not just be concrete stairs. These were secondary stairs, and they were done in concrete. They're done simply as a service kind of a setup. So to me, I don't think they hold weight to any of the issues that we're looking at. The lower openings are, I think the stairwell itself is a pretty generic shape. It doesn't have lintels and jambs and all those things that all the rest of the building has. So I don't think that's an impact. I think there's one window, I guess the kind of the southeast corner that might have some detail on it, but I don't have a picture of it to show that. Actually, no, I don't.
I think,
But the end result is it's lower level,
right.
it's less than waist high kind of involvement, and very little impact. So I don't see it as being, to me, it's not a contributing element to the building, those particular stairs. The west side, yes. I'm glad to hear that they're being kept.
Yeah,
The pathways, we're glad
Right.
that they're being kept. You know, we can't really fight with a shade tree. I mean, it would be traditionally, the turnaround was where you had it originally, in the original building. So that's not exactly in keeping, but, you know, that's not why we're here. So I guess we're just talking about whether that's appropriate as a connection point,
Right.
and whether it has any kind of an impact that we feel is significant. If not, it should be fine. And that's really the issue tonight.
I
All right,
think
I
there's
agree.
some public comment.
Yeah.
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 So, but that's the issue tonight. So if we're going beyond that tonight, that's not really the venue to do that, but.
I just have a question.
Can you come to the microphone? So we are going to do public comment now. Please, we're trying to keep
This
it
is just a question.
in 5 minutes max.
On the northwest side, where the,
Turnaround?
whatever, the turnaround has been moved, I just want to clarify whether those, whatever you call them, those columns are remaining on the northwest side.
My understanding
to
is
the
that
Copper Beach.
the entrance will stay the same to the north. All of those details will remain, as well as,
Including those,
yes,
okay.
that's
that
my
was-
understanding. Am I right? And then any associated pathway will stay as well, to the point of where the curve starts to come in.
That was my only question.
Okay.
Thank you.
Let me first introduce the young lady that just preceded me, who happens to be my wife. I'm George Strimmel of 47, Luella Court, and the northwestern corner. We appreciate all the care and understanding that is going into preserving that part. Mine is very, very simple. One thing you should think about is that this is your crack at bat. As I have carefully listened to the crafted statements of the attorney opposite, they will not be returning because they do not think they have to. So everything you decide tonight casts the future of this project. And I only ask that you keep that in mind. I know we shall not speak of some of the rest of it, but you will never have another opportunity. And if I am incorrect, you said you didn't think you had to go back because you were keeping a lot of things. So you will not have another crack at bat.
Thank you.
Hi, Jim Schneller. I live within a quarter mile of the premises and traverse it almost daily. And in the same mode as the prior speaker, I'm very concerned this might be your last look at this. I think that's a severe issue, and I think you have to include it in what you decide tonight. I don't think that it's in any way delineated simply by what side of the building's being changed. And I think, simply put, what you may not have observed is that, like countless other historical buildings, the low landscape side of one side, or maybe two sides of a building, depending on the terrain, is a feature. Of course, we don't see it anymore, so it's of value, all the way down to houses or buildings that had an entranceway to the basement, which might have existed here at some point. So there is a severe alteration visually, which is the character of the neighborhood. People are used to seeing, and all the people of Wayne who traverse Llewellyn Court are used to seeing a low-slung terrain, and that's going to be replaced by earth. So that feature is in addition to the lack, perhaps, of any 100-year-old or however you determine the change. Also, I think you absolutely, as advisory body, have every right and every reason here to designate that you'd like a future look at changes to the front and the sides and the interior. And something that you're really benefited with here is neighbors, adjacent neighbors, who have shown up in good numbers, who happen to also be in good number historical mavens or even experts or somewhere in between. And this is enormously beneficial to your ability and to the Board of Commissioners' need to listen to what you say and how you advise. And they're bound by that. I see there's members of the Historical Society here tonight. I think they have been low profile, but I don't think if this Historical Society was questioned within one sentence, you would know that the building should not be altered in any significant way, that it's the jewel of the 5 Township area. The Devon Hotel is no longer with us. This is it. So please bear in mind and try to put conditions on your decision. One last thing. I've heard a lot of talk that you are advisory, and people say that the statute has no teeth. But really, when you read into it, you too have teeth. You are the advisor to the direct governing body of the township. You have strength. They heed your call. Also, there's penalties in the statute, and in the state statutes, section 8,000 and after that give these bodies their power, delineate, and the decisions that have emanated from the courts delineate much power to you, especially in the realm of neighborhood character and less finely defined things that have come up in this case. And this includes, if I could just say, a funny little anomaly in section 8004 regarding the power of the boards of commissioners. There is one sentence that says the board can only consider, when they're determining how they feel about your advisement, they can only determine based on exterior features only. And this could be bandied about as proof that you really have to just take into account the outward appearance, and that's it. But this is matched by at least 20 references throughout that act, chapter 26, of historic aspect, the aspect of the district, the character of the area, including, as you've been so kind to include, the landscape and the tree aspect. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Greg Pritchard from Woodland Avenue in Wayne, and since this is my first time up here speaking to you about this issue, I just want to say that I really think that this issue is why you all are here and this board is here. This is probably the most important case to come before you in the board's history, and it might be for a long time. So just wanted to say that. It's been said before, but the Llewellyn Mansion is, in a lot of people's opinions, the most important building in downtown Wayne in terms of history, in terms of prominence and integrity as well. And I think that's worth considering. There's some things I wanted to show you on the screen, if that's all right. Now, if I can make this go full screen. Now, the last time you met, the issue with that wall, the east wall being partially demolished, wasn't considered and wasn't spoken of at all. And I'm not sure if that was an oversight on your part or if it was just forgotten in general. But there are several other aspects that I think you need to consider because they are not evident very well in just simple elevations and plans. This is a model of the mansion as it currently sits with the ground. I took out the trees and the surrounding houses to make it simpler. When the garage is added and before the dirt is applied, that is what it will look like. And this is taken directly from architect's drawings and plans. When the dirt's applied, it will look like that. Here's another view looking approximately out, probably somebody's living room window, not sure whose, but that's what they'll see. And there it is with the dirt. Now, I think it's important to consider what this entry will look like. It's shown, in the sketches and things like that, but when you look at it in angles like this, you have to realize that there will be walls such as this that will, we don't know what material it's going to be, but that's, the details like that are things you should consider as well as the railings, everything. And really, you just have very sketchy plans, nothing concrete yet. Another view, and with the garage. Just a few more with the garage and entry in place. From the balcony of the mansion. And from the road. So as you can see, it's a little more than just an underground garage. It's a partially submerged garage, I guess you could say, because it does protrude from the surface, and it will affect the view shed of those living around it. And one more thing I want to say, I was going to say this at the end, but given the discussion at the beginning, there are important elements to the building which supposedly, and I don't think any plans are final yet, but supposedly will be replaced, repaired with new materials and that sort of thing, and it will affect the historic integrity of the house. Items such as these, the dormer windows, these are not just windows, they are significant architectural elements. And if the would-be developer of the site would be given the opportunity to work on it with your blessing tonight and essentially not come back and have to present changes to the building, then this is the kind of integrity that we put at risk. So I believe that's all. Thank you.
Thanks, Greg.
So a couple of things with respect to that presentation. I think there were some pretty significant aspects of that open parking lot which were omitted.
Hold on. Greg, could you put that up on the screen while he's talking?
Perfect. Thank you.
You can go up and down.
This one does it just fine. So there's a garage there now. There are dumpsters and trees and cars, and there are houses surrounding it. And I think if you're going to make a presentation like this, and we've seen several of these, although this deviates tremendously from why we are here this evening. If we're going to address it, then let's address it.
Well, I would suggest that there's really no need to address it.
Okay. Thank you.
We are here tonight to talk about the historical aspects of the cement steps that run the east part of the building.
Agreed. We've been through this before, so we just want to make sure, I guess, we stay on task. And to the extent these things keep coming, we have to keep responding. But I appreciate that, Mr. Nagel. The last comment that I'll make is we've heard a lot tonight about whether we'll be back, and we've maintained from the beginning, to the extent your ordinance requires us to come back, we have to come back. To the extent it does not, and this was an issue which was voiced at the commissioners, specifically windows, and it's just not something that brings people back to this board. If the ordinance requires us to come back, we will come back. We have to come back. So I don't think we should blur the line between, well, we aren't going to do it, we have to do it, this is your last crack, take a good swipe. This is a sophisticated board. We've been here 4 times. At one point, we brought in a whole circus of materials for you to consider. We were told we didn't need to do that. That was above and beyond. We stuck to the point. We came back. We're trying to do what we have to do. Doing more in this situation has not proved to be anything more than more of a hassle. Every time we bring more information forward, it's another swipe. If this board requires us to come back as we move forward, we will happily come back. Thank you.
I would do that.
Hi, how are you? Susan Byrne, Luella Court. How do we get this off? Can you get this off? I'm not sure. Okay. Well, we talked before, in the April meeting, you were concerned about district context and massing and the impact to the other buildings in the district. Are you saying that's a closed discussion at this point?
I was not at the last meeting, but I understand that that was approved at the last meeting.
Did you understand that it's going to be more than 9 feet high on the southeast corner? Is that underground to you?
We're not here talking about the parking garage tonight. We're talking about the steps. The parking garage has been approved.
And you understood it was 9.5 feet
If the plans
taller.
come back that are not consistent with what was presented to us, then obviously they'd have to do a new application.
We have approved we have recommended approval for the COA at the last meeting.
Uh-huh. And you
We can't-
understood it was taller than...
We can't change that. The commissioners can deny it.
Well,
and
the
then
commissioners can deny it. Okay.
Then we're back to the
Okay.
whole thing going around again.
Yes, and when we get it right, we'll have it right.
But that's the rule of law.
But just, may I poll, did you not understand it was going to be more than 9.5 feet high on the southeast corner?
Where?
Southeast corner, the
Where?
lowest part.
Point to where that point is.
I'll show you. These are the steps, okay? That was part of why we were here tonight, but I thought it was to try to get it right entirely. And maybe this is something for the Board of Commissioners, but we went out and tried to put a human face on the graphic that was just done by Greg, and Greg's very humble. He hasn't told you that he just graduated from Cornell with his master's in historic preservation, so to cast doubt on the accuracy of his drawings, I think, is probably unfair.
Well, he didn't show any of the landscaping either.
We're not talking about landscaping, though, are we?
Well, but you're
That's
trying to show
different
the whole facade. And you take the
We're talking-
landscaping out, and
we're
you
trying to
take
get it right.
and you
Exactly. We
take
agree.
all the surrounding
Yep.
buildings out, and
We
you have
agree.
something like an
Yep.
island. And
We
it's a whole
agree.
different perspective.
We're trying to get it right. So this is one of my neighbors pointing to, according to the drawings, where the garage will start next to the building. We'll get a little closer. You see, Helen is probably 5'9", 5'8". And then that is a flat surface going out to the lower end of the building. And we, as a neighborhood, were very disturbed. We knew that there was something we were missing and we couldn't figure it out. So we studied harder and worked harder, and we realized that as that grade falls, and Cass said it at one meeting, there's about a 5-foot difference, so that greater than 4 feet now becomes greater than 9 feet. So we went out, and there's the context of your trees and everything else that you'd like to see, and stood with a pole and measured, according to the sketch plans, several different locations. That's where the exhaust fan will come out of the ground above her head. That's due east. Then that is probably the lowest part. You can see I'm still raised at that lowest part. So that's a 9 feet 4 inches from that position, which we measured off. And the top of that pole is how big that garage will be. That is from 23, the Engels front door. So that's not only the same, I mean, it's the same height essentially, different perspective. And so the view shed of the district, that house will no, and anything on that side of the street will no longer see the second floor of the houses across the street from it. Its massing is larger, the footprint is larger than the above-ground garage because there are 2 lanes of traffic in the center as opposed to 5 feet of walkway. So the footprint is more than 10,000 feet. It's big. Now, we were very carefully focused on the copper beech tree, and I think rightly so, but this is a detail that we didn't really talk about. So if you picture a 24-car garage starting at that corner, 12 feet away from the curb line, that's how big this is going to be. It's big. We weren't looking in this direction, and I don't know that anybody else was either. So why we're at the Harb, to me, is to go back and answer some of the questions that we thought the underground garage was going to fix, but in truth, it's not an underground garage at all. It's a garage that's lowered into the ground, but it's still very big, more than 10,000 square foot footprint. The view shed is nailed. The context of the neighborhood is the sight lines are gone from that side. Actually, they are impacted on the north side as well, not as much. Are we preserving the overall relationship with the other buildings in the district, the compatibility? And are we preserving the character-defining development pattern? You talked about a great deal in April about the open part, and I think it was called the void that exists there today. This underground garage is not the solution to preserve these 7 points or that void. So I think this is, as the most important building in Wayne, I think we can make the argument that it is. We have to keep going back and forth until we get it right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Patrick Nolan. I live on West Avenue. My son happens to live on Luella Court, and he is directly in the middle of the curvature of the horseshoe at the east end of the property. His home looks... Well, all right, thank you very much. His home is right here. Okay, great. It would be directly in the middle of that curve. Okay, now, that's my interest in this meeting tonight, as it has been in the other evenings. The one thing I want to say, however, is I was at the last meeting, and the last meeting was basically trying to adjust, as was said here just earlier, and that we were not dealing just with the steps. We were dealing with the garage and its connection to the building. that was the area that became the topic of issue, and no vote was made. One of the gentlemen said that he did not want to vote piecemeal on this. He would rather not just vote on one item and come back and vote in segments, but basically he wanted to deal with the whole thing at one shot. And that's why it's been referred to you. But the issue was set at that meeting that it was going to be the east side that was going to be the issue at this meeting, because that is the issue that obviously the neighbors, and I know my own son and I, in sympathy with him, find to be the issue at hand now. Now, I was going to bring this up myself before I even found out that this was going to be a presentation and that Susan would present this material to you. One of the things that I can tell you is that from this spot here on the turn, if I walk up to the edge of the property, where the property starts, the grass starts as it goes up to the building, I can stand, and I know it's a latitude of maybe 3 or 4 inches off one way or the other. I can look directly at that building, and my eye is practically straight looking at that base of the building as it exists right now, where the ground meets the building. So we're talking about a drop-off, a fall line, if you will, of at least 5, almost 6 feet from the base of the ground as it currently exists. Now, as I understand, what you will have is, as that photo showed earlier, there was going to be an elevation, and the elevation calls for, I think, almost 4 feet. 4 feet. So that means myself, this is 8 feet, and 2 more feet above that, and that's going to be the grass level, the walk level. That is going to be the flat line level of the top of the parking area. Now, I'm only suggesting my own prejudices on this. I know Mr. Holloway has worked like hell from his end, and I don't blame him for being a little exasperated to this time, but the neighbors have the same kind of issue. What I would simply like to say is that what is being offered now is a kind of substitute for above-ground garages that would roughly go about 12 feet and have the look of a storage area. Now, if somebody is walking around that particular property, even though it's graded, even though it's shaved to one side and shaved to the other, a walk around that property and you are looking at almost 10-foot wall of grass. A 10-foot wall of grass. Now, I'm going to simply submit, you know far better than I what's involved with this, but I'm going to submit that if you are the custodian of the historicity of this town, there is nothing more historical in this town than this building. And I think that it's important for you not just to be interested in the historicity of the building, but the historicity of the space that surrounds the building, particularly the space that's going to be at the lower end of this curve, almost 10 feet of grass. Now, granted, the trees are going to, kind of doll that up a bit. There's bushes that are going to be in there, but that grass has to be mowed. The bushes have to be tended. And the simple magnitude of having that high a wall of earth, carved, almost shaved, with straight line precision, fading off on one side, and fading off on the other side, I'm going to say that you have a conflict with a historical building and a horticultural space, if you want to call it that, which has absolutely no historical property to it at all. One of the things that was taken up by you gentlemen when this first came up was that the garages were just too much of a bulk presence, and that it was out of character with the nature of the space, the last practically remaining open space still available to the public. And you said it was not proportionate. I'm simply submitting to you at this particular point that this, in my view, and I'm only hoping that to encourage you to think of whether, in fact, this above ground, I don't know what to call it. It's almost like a fortification out of Valley Forge. Only instead of being 5 feet, it's going to be 10 feet practically. I'm going to ask you if you would please recognize that this is out of proportion with not only the historical character of the building, but also out of proportion with the character of the open space available there. Now I'm going to conclude with this. First time I came before you, I got lucky to say something that people remembered. And I referred to the open space to the east side. And I said, if this, in the instance of that open space, nothing was something. And I'm going to offer you a variant on that. If that parking garage is going to go in and it's going to involve 9.5 to 10 feet, that I would not even I would almost not even be able to see the building if I walked right up to the curb. And so I'm going to offer you this. Consider that something can be nothing. And consider it appropriate with respect to the mound that's going to be there. My last suggestion is this. I know Mr. Holloway has his own requirements for building. I have great sympathy for the risks and everything that he puts in. I got involved in that myself one time with very unhappy results. And what I'm simply going to suggest is, you know, this would be a win, 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 absolutely everywhere, all around, and the streets would be jumping with joy if it could be possible to park on a flat area, put some overhead canopies such as he put in over the back of the parking area there across the street from right by the corner, right by Lucky Duck. Put that in and have people be able to walk, egress. I know it's going to cut into his margin, but you know, building this underground thing is going to cost a heck of a lot of money. And he'll save a heck of a lot of money, you know, that will help defray whatever loss of margin he's going to have. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
This is our 4th trip to the Harb. We were here first with an above-ground garage, and it was come back with an underground garage. It'll make everybody happy. It'll be great. It'll preserve the nothing that is something. Here it is. Now they want above-ground parking with overhead barriers to protect the cars.
I had one question. Just in response to some of the questions out here, is it possible to go any lower with this garage?
The garage floor is as low as it can go in order to allow access into the building. That's number one, and to allow proper access into the garage from Luella Court. I would like to comment on, I love how some people live in their own reality. The grades, our plans are all engineered. The grades are clear. That little pole that you saw that was 9 feet high, the lady just happened to be standing at an elevation that was 3.5 feet higher at that point with the 9-foot pole. So she was showing the top of that pole 12.5 feet higher than actually the level of the yard would be. We are not, I have a picture here of the existing garage, and you can see where the cars are right now in the parking lot. And I think this is what the point that is being missed on so many levels. That our plan, and this is very accurate, whether we did an above ground parking lot or an above ground or below ground garage, that is how big the parking lot would be for 24 cars in order for us to meet the conformity that is required by the township that we have numerous letters on, and Mr. Baumann is here this evening. So whether we do a parking lot, which I've heard tonight now, and I've heard a carport. I think I heard some residents would like a carport now. Dave spoke very well. The first two meetings we presented the above-ground garage. We had a lot of comments from this board about maybe the massing was too large, maybe cut the above-ground garage in half, do 12 cars in the garage and 12 cars in an open-air parking lot. That was one of the recommendations from this board. Another recommendation was break the massing into 3 structures, 3 garages. Maybe that would be more acceptable and more in keeping with the houses that surround Luella Court. We heard loud and clear that the neighbors, and there's 25 neighbors on the street, not just a few that spoke tonight and spoke at the last meeting and the meeting before that. There's a lot of neighbors here. And if you would ask them, would they rather have cars parking with the light shining into their house, 24 cars, 12 on each side, or all the cars under cover? I think to most, the majority would say they would rather have all the parking underneath. We heard this time and time again. There were so many recommendations from this board and from the Board of Commissioners. Look underground. In fact, one lady that spoke tonight, Ms. Burns, the first day I met her on the site when she was walking her dog, and she came up to me before we went to any Harb meeting, and she asked me, what are you proposing? I said, we're proposing to do garages. We have the property under contract, and we are going to propose an attached garage. She asked me that very first day, well, why don't you do an underground garage? I said, we approached the township and we're not sure that it is allowed under the zoning. So we have to go before Harb with what we know we can do. That was Mrs. Burns. That was my first meeting with her. And now I find it really interesting when I go through the whole process. And the first thing she asked me, please consider an underground garage. Now that the above ground garages have been denied, now it's let's stop the underground garages. And I just think at some point reasonableness should prevail. Everything I heard and saw tonight, I'm not an engineer, but our plans are all detailed. The elevations are here. I think Mr. Nolan, your son, is that right, Mr. Nolan? Your son lives right here, does he not? Okay. The elevation difference of this area across here will be about 3 feet, not 10 feet, not 9 feet. But if you look at the grades and you look at the top of our yard, okay, we're going to have 12 to 18 inches of lightweight soil above the garage. At that elevation, you're going to still be able to look right across and at the side of the building. So I just would like to lay any fears that you might have for yourself or for your son or for your grandchildren. I marvel at the gentleman that came up who's an architect. And boy, you can certainly make things look however you want them to look. That's not, our entrance is not going to show concrete walls above our entrance. The grade is going to come right to the walls like we showed on the plan. We're going to have landscape. We have a very detailed landscaping plan. You won't see the side concrete, like a concrete barrier on a PennDOT road. You're going to see a very attractive landscape entryway into the underground garage. And what's nice about it is this is a yard, it's a park. The existing grades of where the trees are only 1 foot lower than the first floor elevation on the high side of this road. You can go out and look at the grade. The grades were cut to put the parking lot, the existing parking lot in. We are going to return the grade to its original character on this side. There's going to be no slope looking across. Miss Burns and all the residents on the north side are going to look at a 2% grade. 2% is the minimum grade you can have to allow a yard to drain. That's what the grade is. There's no 9, 10-foot structure, everybody standing like this. It's going to be dead level from this side, and it's only going to be 5 feet. This road is 5 feet lower than this road. There's no 9 feet. There's no 9-foot earthen wall all the way around. So I'm sorry, I just wish that if they had come and asked, we knocked on everybody's door, we met, and all the people that we talked to, they're not here tonight. You know, people who are accepted, they're fine with, because we sat down and we described what it was and what it was going to do. I can't help if some people we tried to talk to just, they don't want to, it's easier for them to believe what they want to believe than look at the facts. I know we were here tonight for the connection, but I just want to be clear that the lowest point on Luella Court is this inlet right here. And that inlet is at 10 feet lower than the first floor elevation of our building. But the grade, this goes up very quickly, and this is at 2 feet below the first floor elevation. So it's the road that's going up very steep, not our building. So there just were so many misstatements in the last half hour, and I just wanted to make that clear. Thank you.
Thanks.
After
After all these meetings, I feel the need to kind of also respond. The grade, you know, when I'm standing up there with a stick, I mean, we can do another visual for you if you want. We have props back in the back of the room that will show you what we're doing, but it's not really my idea of an underground garage. I don't know if it's your idea of an underground garage, but it's a garage that's been lowered by a bit. And on the southeast corner, of course, we were paying attention, as Kaz said, to the northwest quadrant of this project and not to the southeast project, or southeast quadrant of this project. And that's a 9-foot, when I'm standing there like that with the pole, it's 9 feet from where I'm standing, and I'm standing on a hill. So from the road, it's even more. I mean, I don't know if you walked past this when you all went on the tour with Cass last week, but maybe it would be helpful to go back and take another look and see, because these numbers are following the contour lines. We're following the angles in the scales of the architectural drawings. We have advisors advising us to this thing. It's not being made up. In fact, I think that's an old argument. I don't think it's effective anymore. Luckily, a lot of you know us from other work we do in the community, and I think you know us to be better than that. So it is 9 feet from, you know, it's big. It's 4 feet higher than the north side, and then you add the grade of the next 5 feet, and you come up with 9 in my book. So take a look. But I don't think it's as inaccurate as you may be being led to believe. Thank you.
Thanks.
So the plans speak for themselves. They're engineered plans. They speak for themselves. We're not saying anybody's lying. We're saying we have signed, sealed, engineered plans, and they speak for themselves, and they've been submitted to the township.
I think we have to, I welcome hearing discussion. Excuse me. I welcome hearing discussion, but we are here to talk about one issue right now. And technically, this has been an approved plan, as I understand it. Correct, Matt?
That's correct.
So I think we can talk about it and say, can we do this, can we do that? But it's an approved plan in our book. We're talking about one extra piece of this plan that was unclear that needs to be approved. And that's what we need to deal with tonight. And I think we need to slow down some of the other discussion, because that's something that I think needs to go before the Board of Commissioners at this point. So that's probably where you should direct your energy from here forward on this issue. Although I like to use these as discussions and these meetings to get everybody's feelings out, I think there's a point where we might be beating this thing up a little bit based on what we've already done. So, Greg, you have something else?
Oh yeah, can I just make a quick point? The plans speak for themselves. No. The rendering showed two walls entering the garage, which are shown in the plans.
Greg, speak in the mic, please.
I'm sorry. It's not too clear on the screen, but the walls are clearly shown on the plans, and I believe Mr. Holloway just suggested that there would actually be sloping grade down where the walls are shown in the plans. And if that's so, then the plans have evidently changed. So I don't understand why the plans that you have now approved, it's actually changed, I think.
No, it's his plan that he presented, that he showed his graphic that changed. Our plans haven't changed. Our walls aren't going to be as high as he showed them going into the garage out at the street, so that they're not going to stick up like concrete and PennDOT barriers. Okay, the opening going in is going to slope with the ground, so you're only going to see the walls as you enter, not as you approach on either side. I thought I made myself clear on that, but I just wish that I think we have gone over this enough. I really do.
Well, the elevation sketches do show something different, but I don't know if we want to go on about this, but they stick up about 2 to 3 feet, it looks like, on here. And these are the plans that you voted on, and now suddenly it's something different. So I don't know if that nullifies your previous decision or not, but.
We need some consistency. We do have a sketch plan that shows, I think, what Greg is referring to on the east side elevation, and we do have an engineered plan that has an east side elevation. The engineered plan shows that retaining wall going down the curb. So I think ultimately your engineered plan is going to be your submittal, and the sketch plans are sketch plans. So the hard line drawings that will have your architects or your engineer seal will be those things that are the real deal. Part of that's in this package. So maybe we need to talk about how we approve things and which drawing we're talking about. I'm not sure if that was mentioned in the last approval. It was just as a whole. I mean, we can put a. I don't know, procedurally, Matt, I don't think we can go back, can we?
No.
Okay. Yes.
Baron Gemmer, I'd just like to disagree with your prior point. Nothing's been approved. You're a recommendatory body.
Recommended by us.
The Board of Commissioners is looking for your input, whether there's additional input on other things besides that come up. I mean, it's the same application. It doesn't. You should be taking all relevant information relative to this, but I will heed your warning regarding trying to go over in the detailed plans. But as Kaz says, the plans do speak for themselves, and if you look at the elevation lines, which go from 99 at the house and then another 4.5 feet for the garage, and they're 94 feet in the southeast corner, literally the distance from me to you, if I'm standing at the southeast corner looking in approximately 12 feet, I'm looking at 9.5 feet of dirt or more. That's what the plans say. And if he's not interpreting that, I'm sorry, but that's exactly what the plans say with the elevation, and it's very clearly indicated there if you know where to look. But if you don't, it's not apparent, and that's why what the measurements that Susan showed were accurate with the sticks. They took into account the existing grade at the points where she was, and the rendering that Greg gave you a ballpark, but the measurements that you see are accurate. At the southeast corner, it's nearly 10 feet all the way around that curve. And if Kaz wants to dispute that, I'll be happy to show the drawings right now, the 3 drawings right now that show that that's where the grade is and that's what it'll look like.
All right, thank you, Bernie.
Hello, I'm Nancy Fleming, and I live at 17 Luella Court. I'm going to be looking directly at this opening. One of the things that I mentioned at the last Harb was that this isn't unusual because it is an underground. But when I have watched other Harb meetings, it has always been, what will this building do to adjoining properties? You know, how will it affect it? And it seemed that it was dismissed because it was going to be an underground. This opening, which is almost the size of my twin house, as it approaches 2 cars, is going to have a dramatic effect. That is what I'm going to see. And on this one drawing, I'll just lift this one up. in order to not waste a lot of time, when there have been other renderings and you've seen this low car, as you've seen it from the side, and it's been so far down, and the existing garage is here. So when you look at that, you will not see these other buildings. This was not the way this historic district was designed. It was designed so that we had this view shed of all of the properties. There is an old advertisement for the first original houses that were built on this court. And it was, you had Luella Drive, and then it was Luella Park. And it was so that all of these homes were beautifully designed so that they look at one another. On this side, all of these homes, you will not see that. As you walk the street, you won't see that.
How do you know that?
Because I live there, and the existing garage house.
There's a lot of testimony tonight about how high this is going to be, and there's really nothing to support what you're saying. And, well, this application was approved based on professionally prepared site plans. And, I'm not going to suggest that the site plans are wrong, but
if you have a line on the side of the building, there is an architectural line, as far as the stucco. If that is continuing across, okay, and the cars are down here, when we look up, we are looking up a slope, but we're able to see these houses. That line coming across eliminates that. You might see the roofs. And no one is addressing the fact of,
Ma'am, even, I'm not disagreeing with what you're saying. My only comment is, if they put those trees up that are on the landscape plan, you won't be able to see those homes anyhow.
Exactly, and one of the issues, well, that becomes a traffic issue. We had one person hit on a bike, okay? We already have worked. I've lived on this court for 30 plus years. We have always worked with the owners. There's been 3 different owners since I've been there. As far as the hedge is high on the one side, the first property in, as far as the cars coming, to block the light of the cars. As you come around that slope, the hedges that are here right now are too high.
You make a valid point. However, they're not issues that
I did say that was a traffic issue.
I understand, and please don't bring that up at this meeting. We're here
But you're talking about the fact that you can add these trees and that this is going to, change, that view shed.
That still isn't before our board either.
But you were the one that mentioned that. That's why I...
Because you just brought things up to sightlines, that's all. That's neither here nor there.
The point is that this is a historic district. This is not just this developer, wanting to make a particular price point. We are talking about a historic district, and all of these homes, these individual homes, have property rights, and these people have... I have worked on the 2 properties that I own every single year. We still aren't done. And we treasure our homes as much as he treasures his. He talks about what he has to go through to change this. New roofs. All the heating was taken out. New heating put in. New electricity. New plumbing. New kitchens. New walls. New insulation. I'm still not done. And now I am going to be looking at this opening that's not below ground. It's not at grade level going in. It's above ground. And all you have to do is walk on that court and see that line on that building to see what I'm going to look at. And my house is tilted. I have driveway. He has offered to give me some landscaping. As he came to the house and he stood in my house, looked at the doorway, and he said, "Oh, I see what you mean. My house faces all the windows, because it's a twin, look out onto that driveway. I have nothing that I can plant. Now, I don't understand how you can, in other board meetings, that you can talk about the impact that something is going to have on adjacent properties and not address it on this because it's an underground. I don't understand that. He can be emotional. I can be emotional.
But we did talk about these issues at the last meeting.
No, I don't believe that they were fully addressed, because I remember you were saying, what about that wall and this landscaping? And I said, it's not going to help. And you said, well, there has to be a give and take, if you want to restore this building. Well, how much do I have to give? My whole 30-some years of working on this property? I mean, we just put a bathroom in. Now, I was hoping to do the landscaping in the front and the side, and this tiny little driveway that I have. We have little Alberta. I have a small little courtyard that requires a lot of work. We have to do the masonry on the side of the house before I can do the grading in there. That was going to be the seating, so that I had a seating area so in front of, in the walkway in front. And now I'm sitting there trying to figure out, every day I am out there. The police have said, why are you out here at 1 o'clock in the morning? Because I'm trying to figure out how I can landscape the front of my house. I can landscape this tiny little strip because of the way I'm curved, and the only person that's going to benefit is my next door neighbor. Because all my living room windows and my front windows. We opened up, we have a twin, and it was a sun porch. It's $10,000 just to open this wall so that I had light. Because I'm facing the north, and my south is the kitchen, and it's a twin. And the sun porch wall was blocking it. I was living in a cave, and I had one window in the front. My neighbor can look into the dining room, so those blinds always have to be pulled. So I have a little window in the kitchen and this one window in the front, and I'm looking at this opening. I don't feel that this was addressed at the last meeting. I'm sorry. I have so much
I think your
respect
neighbor
for this
was there.
board.
I think your neighbor was there, a man.
Yes,
And he was going.
Oh, yes.
He offered a lot of suggestions also.
Yes.
So we went through this quite a bit.
And he was pleased because of the landscaping. That was my husband, and when we got home, hell was to be paid. Because I said, where are you going to plant this tree?
Well, we don't want to get involved with a family fight here.
Well, hell was paid.
Yeah.
But we did base.
Because I sat there, and this has been a labor of love. This hasn't been, someone who has developing money, that they can plunk down and have someone else do the work. This is scraping off 5 layers of wallpaper, with a 3-month-old baby, doing all the sanding on this front door because I wanted to restore it, and getting to the very bottom, and termites had gone through it. So I have to replace it. They didn't do it right, spending another, I don't know how many thousands to do it, just so I could save this sunburst. If you come by, the door is red. The top part had to be custom done to fit this other thing. We've opened up the windows.
Ma'am, we understand what you've done. I have a 100-year-old house. I've done 10 times the amount that you just did, so I'm totally empathetic with what you said.
But
what else do you have to say regarding our issues today?
But if
what else are you, because we have other people that want to talk, and it's getting late.
I just don't understand why. If it's going to affect another property value, another person's property, why this is not being addressed. It appeared that it was addressed as the fact that, well, it's going to be underground.
And your father, I'm sorry, your husband feels otherwise. So
no, he does not now. Not once we got home and I pointed it out.
Well, we can't do things after the fact.
Okay, there's one thing to have it discussed in a meeting where you have plans, where someone has a particular point that they're trying to prove, okay? And another thing when you're standing there on the property.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sir, who else? You've been up here before. If anyone else wants to comment? And please make your comments, as George said earlier, regarding the interface with the building.
Allison Engel, 23 Luella Court. I was just wondering if you could clarify something for me. I understand you're trying to make the point that we can really only comment on these building connections at this meeting. But it seems from all of the comments that there is so much concern that we really feel like it was not addressed when the underground garage was approved, because I really believe, I had the impression that everyone believed this was truly an underground garage. And I feel like a lot of information has come to light. Maybe you all fully understood.
Back up just a little bit.
I'm sorry. Maybe you all
You're a little close.
fully understood how high the grade was going to be. I live at the bottom southeast corner, probably the lowest point. I certainly did not understand how high that grade was going to be. I fully believe that it was completely underground. So this is an issue now, as well as all of the tree plantings. And of course, Shade Tree has really concerned themselves with, okay, you're taking down 3 100-year-old trees and 7 other trees, and what are you replanting? And they're really just concerned with what they're replanting. Between the grade and the new planting, what I feel I see, and especially when this comes to maturity, is essentially a wall around the entire half of the property, the east side of the property. It's a very small district. You're talking about the small business district, the building, the east lawn, and the houses that surround it. It's one of the 3 historic districts in Radnor remaining. Very small. We did not approve the above-ground garage because that would not be in character with what we're trying to maintain here in this historic district. And I'm trying to get a sense of how a much higher wall of earth with these plantings surround it, probably wouldn't even be able to see a garage behind it, to be honest with you. I'm just confused because we're here, I guess you're here to maintain the character of each historic district. And I truly believe that the entire east side of the property will not be maintained in its character for all the residents of Radnor Township. There's been a lot of talk about how the neighbors want this and the neighbors don't want this. This is about all the residents of Radnor Township and future generations and what we're trying to preserve here. And if we're not allowed to speak to all the questions on the entire east half of the property tonight, I would really hope that at some point we could do that, because I think that there are a lot of confusing points as to what was approved before, just the underground garage, and from what we're really talking about tonight. I think there's a lot of questions, and I think the residents of Radnor really, you owe it to them to make sure that we do this right.
And you have a chance to speak at the next Board of Commissioners meeting.
Thank you.
That's
Thank you
really
for hearing me.
when you should
That's really what it's all about.
do that. Thank you.
So I guess I want to be clear, because we're hearing a lot of different things tonight. This was discussed at length at the last Harb meeting when it was voted on. I just don't want to get in front of the commissioners and have them say, well, I don't think they considered that when they made their recommendation. These are the same plans. If you have any questions with respect to what you voted on before, all of this was discussed. That opening was discussed. Unfortunately, you can't have an underground garage without an opening. It's designed safe. All of that was discussed. The fence was discussed. The landscaping was discussed. The grade was discussed. It was all discussed, and it's all on the plans. If you have any questions about that, I think we should probably discuss them tonight if you think you didn't consider them before. Because we're going to get in front of the commissioners, and Commissioner Nagel's not here, but I've seen it before. They're going to say, we don't think they considered it. Maybe you should go back next month and ask them. So I'm asking you, if there's something you're not sure of, please, let's discuss it. We think it's all been discussed. The plans have not changed. So if we could focus on that, that would be great. Thank you.
I'm Larry Farrell. I'm in 19 Luella Court. I just have a question for procedural-wise. I understand it was passed at one of the meetings in regards to this underground garage and so forth, but what if you have a circumstance where additional information comes in and there's some question about it? What is the procedure for revisiting that?
we recommend, we're an advisory board, so we recommended that the COA be approved. Goes to the Board of Commissioners, they deny or approve. Okay? Now, the next chance is they could deny this whole thing next time around, and it starts all over again. So
Right.
that would be the procedure.
But is there something within your group that we could start it before it gets to Board Commissioners?
No,
They can't.
not at this point.
We were told what we would like to have done, not necessarily on this project, but in general. We were told that we could not give a recommendation with, we could not give a recommendation to the Board of Commissioners with
Conditions.
with conditions, so that if we saw something, and and we've had this, and it's been a somewhat of a problem where people will come before us, and they have a great plan, but there are a few things that we think should be altered before we approve it. We were told that we cannot do that. We either have to give a yes or a no, and that's the way. That's what we've been told. I mean, we were told by what's his name? But no,
By
not
staff.
Matt.
This is by staff.
But no, by
Rice?
No, Ray.
by Ray.
Okay.
Rice.
Is this documented anywhere? I mean, this whole procedure, is it documented so we can also understand it? I mean, so we can go through that?
Yeah, the ordinance, there's no specific provision for what you're asking for. There's nothing in there now where
Right.
you could somehow, now, obviously, if what they are going to do changes, and if it's different than the plans that the board approved, then they would have to come back.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
This is just, again, my name is Patrick Nolan. I live at West Avenue. I'm sorry to take, there's a lot of photographs here. I'm gaining on it.
So are you going to add something more than
Yeah,
what you haven't said
I wanted to,
before?
here it is. About this grade. I've attended every one of these meetings except the Shade Tree Commission meeting. And we've never talked about the grade from the building to the east end of the property. And I simply want to make a suggestion. I don't think that's going to do much. This is hardly going to be persuasive. But you see a fire plug here. I don't know the size of that, but it's at least 3 feet, maybe more.
Microphone.
I'm sorry? Oh.
Use the mic.
There's a fire plug here, and it's probably 3 feet, maybe 3.5. And if you take a look at its relationship to the house and walk toward the house a little bit, toward the base of this tree here, you'll see snow cover here. But if you do a straight line out from there to this fire plug, you're going to come out to this blue knob right here. Now, that's 2.5 feet right there. And this is not at the house yet. What I'm going to say to you is, I think this is the only evidence I have that is out of the realm of plans, which have not been very persuasive here. And it's a photograph, so you have some sense of true relationship between the plug and the house. And I'm only going to suggest one thing, that there is almost a 2-foot drop-off from this point to the street, and probably no more than about 10 to 12 yards, maybe 15 tops. From this building going all the way out to here, I am no fool when it comes to my height. I am no fool when it comes to my vision, and I'm only going to repeat. What we have here in maybe 15 yards tops, 2.5 feet difference. When you take it all the way out to the end of this, that's a 6-foot difference, practically. And then you add to it the 4 feet that is going to be added in order to develop it up and remove the steps. So I'm returning to something. I'm not illusory. I'm not blind. And I ain't fibbing. Thank you.
Thanks.
Cam, I just wanted to clarify that in terms of what the Harb can decide in a decision, okay? It's in the ordinance here, okay? And you can approve the application as submitted, approve the application subject to changes and conditions, not including the application as submitted, but also please note that the failure by the applicant to accept conditions of approval shall be deemed a denial of the application. And thirdly, denial of an application setting forth the reasons for such denial based upon the provisions of this chapter. So all this will then go to the Board of Commissioners, where if there's conditions attached, the applicant may try and overturn those conditions, but you do have that ability though. And I'm not sure if staff told you that, but I don't believe that's the case, but that's the rule in here, okay?
Well, we sort of knew that was the rule, but we were being told clerically it would be almost impossible to track conditions and things that go beyond here to permit, to beyond. So the guy who's doing the inspections doesn't have a hard case to look at. So there's a confusion that needed to be ironed out. It may have been ironed out by now, but that was why we were told focus yes or no, and that's what we're doing for now.
Okay.
So, I mean, we'd love to have conditions on a lot of this stuff because we want to get people in, talk to them about it, get them in the right direction, say, yes, do this, but you need to do A, B, and C, and get back to us.
Okay.
Well, that was really fought against by staff for the clerical reasons for tracking that. So that's the way we'd like to operate.
Okay, well, I'm just letting you know that it is in there though, okay?
Thank you. And just a suggestion for Kaz is maybe it would be helpful if you were to stake the corners of this proposed underground garage and tie on some heights of what the, I mean, you can call it top of deck or top of soil or whatever, just so, I mean, there's a lot of people who are interpreting your drawings and going out there themselves, and whether they're right or wrong, you know, I can't tell by not going out there and measuring it myself. But to get some of these people to understand exactly what's going on, it might be worthwhile staking a few stakes on the sides and the corners and maybe the end and throwing heights out there as to what this, where the top of this building is. And just so they visually have that. I don't know if that's something you would entertain doing, but I think it might help the case. You know, you don't have to do that. I'm just saying, you know, to try to get around the neighborhood feeling this way.
I just have a question.
Yes.
I'm Judy Strimmel from 47 Luella Court. Are you clear, as a board, about these heights? Were you clear when you gave your permission, approval?
All I can say is I wasn't there at that meeting, so I did not vote in that meeting. So
Was
so
the
my
rest
vote
of the
doesn't
board
count.
clear that how these elevations were working? I wasn't, but I'm not on an historic board. I had no idea of the elevation of this quote-unquote underground garage. This underground garage is higher than the fence that I had to put in my backyard and get a permit for. Certainly not from you as a board did I need to get that permit. So I'm just unclear as to whether you were clear about the the dimensions of this underground garage? Yes? No? I mean, did it make sense to you, the elevations?
For me, at one of the meetings, this came up. And I think it was pretty much the way Kaz explained it.
So you were clear?
From that same, now, the neighbors brought forth another interpretation.
Right.
I don't know who's right. Somebody's right, somebody's wrong. That's...
You know, when we talked about it, for example, I was clear about the entrance. We talked about that, and, you know, I'm sorry that the wife wasn't here. I'm sorry, I've forgotten your name, but
she was here.
Okay. Well, she was here, but she didn't express such concern, and your husband did, and we were operating on what was said. So yes, I was clear. We talked about the balustrades on top of the entrance.
Right, but I meant the whole garage itself. That it no longer is an underground garage. It's an half above and half below. Well, it's damn well up there.
Well, you know what? I'll tell you right now that I'm not clear anymore because one side is saying one thing and one side is saying something else. When we talked about it, I thought, and we discussed it, I thought we were pretty clear about it. Mm-hmm. You know, now the other thing is that while we may not have been clear, if we weren't clear, I don't know, I thought we were clear, but we didn't even really discuss this in great detail at the last meeting. And I'm not saying this in pro or con, I'm just saying that, you know, people are coming up with criticisms and so forth. I wish that they had come up before we had approved it rather than... But
we didn't know about the dimension of the grade. And maybe, I still, as I look at these plans, do not see that grade clearly. And maybe that's just me not being able to read the plan. But I do not see how this fits in to an historic district. This mound, this mausoleum. And I'm just unclear as to whether you as a board feel that it fits in to the guidelines of the historic district that Luella Court sits in.
Yeah, the question is this. I think right now you have an open space with trees, bushes, and an old garage. That's going to be replaced with an open space, trees, bushes, that'll be elevated higher, and whether, the question I guess is whether it's 5 feet or 9 feet, does that have a historical impact?
And that's a good question.
And people may disagree on that. And, you know, that is, you know, in my own mind, I don't see that it makes a significant difference looking at the entire historic aspect of that area. That's just my opinion. And I know people will disagree with that.
But you are entitled, and you're the one that sits on the board, and I just say, sort of, I just can't believe that when the board was created, that this is what it had in mind in terms of preserving the historic characteristics.
If you're part of that process, there's a lot of things that weren't thought through. And you know, that brings up another point on the, you know, getting past the garage, you know, the work on the house. I mean, we are really stuck with the ordinance we have, and the township can always agree to change that. But there was a definite decision not to have this ordinance as hardcore as some of the neighboring ordinances, and in the writing of that ordinance, they decided it was going to be limited to 3 things: demolition of a building, erection of a building, or an addition to a building where it expands the footprint. And if you're not doing one of those 3, then it's not within our jurisdiction. So for example, if there's windows replaced, if there's a new roof put on, in my opinion, we don't have jurisdiction on that.
And I agree.
Although someone could argue that any repair is a demolition, but I think you have to add some common sense to these ordinances.
Right. But the construction, which is what we're looking at, something that is twice as much as what was originally talked about, doesn't that fall under your purview? And is that okay, that it's now, what, 10,000 plus square feet? Is that okay in this
If there is a
district?
demolition, an erection or an addition, then we can look at scope and massing and those types of things.
Okay,
Because
there's a
it's-
demolition of the existing garage. Whether you think that's a good thing or a bad thing is neither here nor there. But there is a demolition of an existing garage. And now there is.
Well,
an-
I'm not, the
Right.
garage is definitely covered under the ordinance. I'm not arguing that, but
But now we're talking about 10,000 plus square feet of building, and you can't deny that this is a building because it comes up so high. It's just my thought, and it saddens me that this as we've talked and talked and talked, this iconic property in the middle of Radnor Township is being changed so significantly, and that perhaps the Harb doesn't have the power to control it or change it or limit it.
well, we may, but we may not decide to do that.
Then I understand that.
Right.
And we have the option of going to the Board of Commissioners, I guess would be.
No option, absolutely going to the Board of Commissioners.
Thank you. This is
Sure.
not, I know you're trying to work within the
We have to work.
guidelines
We have
that you
to.
have, and
And that's-
I understand that.
Thank
I
you.
just wanted to be clear as to whether you were clear about these elevations.
Thank you.
You know, can I just make one comment
make your
in
point.
response to you? What we would like to do as a board, even though it's not covered in the ordinance, we would, and we've been trying to do this, is give recommendations to the homeowner or to whomever is, making the changes. But because they're not covered in the ordinance, at least the way the ordinance has been interpreted by the commissioners and by the township people and by us, we would like to give those recommendations before all this stuff happens, and we would like to have had everyone come to us before it even went on the table. But again, as a board, we were told that we cannot do that. And that's a real problem, because I think that a lot of this stuff could have been ironed out before everything, before you get to this level, and the builder and developer and homeowner and whomever, they spend all this money on plans and elevations, and they're coming back and back and back. It would have been nice to have had everyone get together and we could talk about it, but we
Not set up.
can't, it's not set up at this time. As far as, that's how we've been operating, that's how we've been told to operate. Because we really would in terms of, we'd like to, we're a preservation board, but we also would like to be able to help people with preservation questions. And
now it's pretty adversarial.
well, it's not that it's just adversarial, but for example, the question of the windows. We spoke with Cass when he showed us around, and he was telling us some of the materials he would be using and so forth, and I thought it was very helpful. And it would be really helpful if that discussion could have taken place with the neighbors or in public before anyone had to make a decision.
Now, you as a board had an opportunity to meet with Kaz on the property, as I understand it?
We did.
Okay.
Well, we did to the extent, yes, we went through the building. And the other thing I just want to correct is that we don't have any authority
I'm sorry.
on the interiors of the building. The interior is really
So,
pretty spectacular.
You
But-
were able to walk around the property as a board and have Kaz point out to you the elevations and all of that? Or was that not part of the?
We did talk about the elevations. We talked about the elevation closer to the building.
Mhm. But not the whole property?
Well, we didn't walk
No,
way
no,
to the
I'm
end.
just asking.
Yeah,
This
no,
is
I'm
not
telling
a-
you.
Yeah,
So,
just to make a point, that this is very common. We typically want to see a property before
Sure,
making a
and
decision.
I would think you would
Yeah.
want to.
It makes for a better decision-making
Right.
process.
right.
I guess my only final little question was, does that fall under the sunshine law?
No, there are no decisions made or no
We
debate on
made
the
no
issue.
decisions at all. We didn't even discuss this meeting among ourselves. after we went on the site visit. We all went our own separate ways, and that was that. But it really, the point of the meeting was for each of us to understand.
And I
what was
can't
happening.
imagine how you can make a decision without having that opportunity.
Right. Yeah.
Thank you for your answers. Thank you.
Mrs. Strimble actually made a couple of good points, and we certainly appreciate the questions she brings because they're helpful to this process. One being kind of why we're here, and I think she outlined it. You know, we're in front of you because of the demolition of the garage and because of the construction of the underground garage. And I think that's important. I mean, that's why we're in front of this board. If we weren't going to demolish that garage and if we weren't going to build an underground garage, we wouldn't be here. So, you know, that's why we're here, and I think it's a good question to reconsider why this application was made. Secondly, a submission was made. We're hearing a lot of discussion about the nature of this garage, and it seems to me to be a little bit of a foreshadowing of maybe what is ahead. This is an underground garage. We've submitted a request to the township for a determination based on that and the compliance of that garage with the side yard setbacks. So, to be clear, it's an underground garage. It's underground, and it's a garage. Thanks.
There have been a lot of emotions here displayed tonight on all fronts. I think for the purpose of the grade issue, actually this photograph is very helpful, especially when you look at it in relationship to the actual topography that we have on our existing conditions survey. And the nice thing about looking at a photograph like this, you know that a horizontal plane like this rail, maybe if the gentleman that's doing the overhead could zoom in a little, that would be terrific.
Are we going to talk about grade or not? Let's decide.
No. The question was brought up, and this photograph was brought up, and it was, and the hydrant. No. I'm just. These are my photographs. They've been at these photographs have been submitted to every Harb meeting that we've attended, and the gentleman pointed it out. So I would just like to point out what was stated about the hydrant and about what the grades are. So I think it'll be clear, and if you'll notice, right below the photograph, and this has been the presentation, you can see this was the car when we were doing the circle. That would have been the circle right in front of the north front door. This perspective is somebody standing on the Victorian circle here, actually on the property looking at the building. And this car is at the elevation of the grade. We also have those elevations shown on some of the sketch plans. But more to the point, this photograph, the rail that goes to the basement, the eastern side that we've been discussing earlier this evening, see this rail? See the top of the top steps that are going to be removed? The top of the flagstone patio is 4 inches higher than that. Just draw a straight line across that rail, and that is the elevation. And if you look at the top of the hydrant, and you look at the cars in the parking lot, our top of the yard at the top of the garage, which is 18 inches higher than the actual building structure, the concrete roof or ceiling of the underground structure, has 12 to 18 inches of soil on top of it. So the top level of where everybody is going to enjoy and congregate is no higher than the windshield of this car where the windshield wipers are. And I think, and I hear a lot of oohs and ahs, but they are the facts. You can look at the elevation, you can look at the grades on our plans. You can look at the elevation. This tree, that elevation is, I believe, 1.6 feet below the first floor elevation, and that was original grade. This tree here is original grade. Where that tree is located, the root system is higher than the top of the tire of that car. The parking lot was cut out. But what I'm trying to say is all this talk about this structure is higher. It's like we built an above-ground garage and put a lot of dirt on top of it, and we have mounds on both sides. It's not accurate. It's not true. And I just, the plans are clear, contrary to a lot of the testimony that's been given tonight.
Hi, Susan Byrne again. Since we're talking grade, let's go to the Moni Cass's drawings. It's called Underground Garage Layout, and look at the contour lines on the drawing. Do you have copies of those, or does Jim need to zoom in? Some of it's really very light. We've established with the picture of Helen pointing to the side of the building that it's about, let's say, 4 feet high from the current grade. I have to go in and look at this carefully to make sure I'm right, but right there is 100, 99, 95 at the corner. Okay. So 6, 7, 8, 9, 105. So it is on the drawings. It's very pale. But we're not taking a dart and throwing it at a number and calculating this. We've really looked into it a lot at great time, loss of time. And that's the grade. So if we go back to my presentation, which you don't want to see again, but I can send you if you want to see it, at this corner, you're at 95, and up here you're at 100, and that's a 5-foot difference, and then you add a 5-foot difference to a 4.5-foot elevation from the ground. And that's where we got our numbers. Andrea? No? No? I didn't know if you had something.
No, I didn't have anything to say. I was curious, in the other corner, what the grade is. I mean, I think it's good to have the discussion. I don't know if this is.
Well, we're looking for the best outcome we can have, right?
Yeah. So on the corner that, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What
99.
is the grade there? I'm curious. What I'm trying to figure out is what the grade is all around. How subtle is the grade?
It's very variable. It's very variable.
You know, I mean, it's not 10 feet all the way around.
No.
Right.
Oh, no.
Right. So the question that I have is, what is it in that corner? You know, how is
in that
this?
corner, it's this right here.
Yeah.
Is 99. Here is 95. Here is 100. So these are essentially the 4 corners. And here is 98.
And what is that other corner?
This is 98. That's 99. This corner is 100. The curb is 101. So there, from corner to opposite corner,
right,
is a 5-foot, at least, difference, 5 or 6.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
I just realized the Shade Tree Commission, they thought they didn't have the grades. They were actually on the Shade Tree plan too. So pleasant surprise. But this actually shows the grade, and I think, is this the plan you were showing, Susan? Or do you want me to use yours? I'm not sure.
No, let's just show the same set. What's your date? 5/17, yeah. Underground garage layout, yes.
Is
that's
that
it.
okay?
Yep.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you very much. If you, what we have is at the basement, we did the first floor at 0, and the basement floor is 8 feet 10 inches lower. You can see that at the building there, right at the steps. Right here. Can you see that? The 100-foot elevation line, which is the existing grade, and it runs all the way around through here, is true and correct. The curb line, I think that Susan just stated, is at 101. So if you look at the reason, what I'd like to do is just go to the actual survey, because it shows you the relationship of the existing conditions as opposed to how we determined 0 for the first floor elevation. But I believe that the door sill is at 103.24. The door sill, that's the actual, when you look at the picture, that's the actual first floor. That's the top of the sill is at 103.24. The curb by the hydrant is at 101, but the grade behind the hydrant is a foot higher than that. That's why I was saying that the original ground where the trees are is actually higher than what was excavated out. Okay, so as the curb line, this is really good because you'll see that in front of Susan's house you have 100, 101, and 101 straight across. The top of the north side of Luella Court is basically level. It's very level, and that road is lower than the curb line. The curb is higher, and the grade behind the curb is higher. And when you look at the photograph, that's why that photograph is so helpful. When you look at it in terms of where the snow is where the curb is, which is 101, you can see that the grade is going up around the existing trees. So the elevation at the tree, at certain of the trees, is higher than the 100 line. So that the building itself is lower than the first floor and goes straight across, and as I stated earlier, a 2% grade from 35 feet away where the edge of the garage will be to the curb is a 2% grade on this whole run across. It's basically level for practical purposes on that on the north side. There's no elevation, there's no bank. You're looking at a 2% grade to the top of the garage structure.
So just so I understand it, the lowest part here, the bottom right corner, is 95. Is at 95?
Correct.
It says 95 on the plan.
No, the line, our corner of our building, the 95-foot contour traverses through the corner of our building. That's the existing grade.
I see 94 and I see 95, so it's somewhere in between there. And the existing parking area is at 100? Something like that? Looks like it's about 100, 99. So right now there's a 5 or 6 foot grade.
correct.
difference?
At
The
that
difference. And you're going to add another 3 feet to that, which will make it a 8-foot altogether. So you're talking about going from 5 or 6 feet to 8 or 9 feet. That's what we're talking about,
That's correct.
based on these numbers.
That's correct. You know, that's, it's a very, you're going to be able to walk around it and just see the ground and on all sides of the street. The building is not going to stick out like a sore thumb out of the, it's not an above-ground structure. It's below ground. And the grade, you're going to be able to read the entire building from all sides. Does that help?
Next to where the entry is. The center of the driveway is like 99 or 100. So you're 3 feet to the. 3 feet. But the top of the finished earth, top of the garage is gonna be like 106. Almost 106. Well, it's like we can't do it. At least that one. Also. Okay, I'll do it again. Minus 12. Minus 12 feet from there. Do you want
Barbara Farrell, 19 Llewellyn Court. I just had a quick question. I'm more of a, numbers don't mean as much to me. I'm more of a visual person. I was curious as far as, we're next to the Flemings, we're the other half. What will we be looking out at? I mean, right now I'm looking at grass. Okay, and we're 2 car lengths, and then you're at the street, and then you would be in the front. I was curious as far as, Cass, how high is this? Like, in my living room window, will I be looking at dirt, or would I be looking at, I mean, up top sounds really nice and everything, but when you look out our window, right now I'm looking at grass. Sorry. Right now I'm looking at grass. Into the mic. I'm looking at grass. I was wondering, how high is that?
Cass, you can answer the question?
I have to have visual. Huh?
You're right here,
Yes,
right?
yes.
Okay. The curb line, you know what? That's the inlet right there.
Oh,
That's
can you put the plans down and then point?
Sure.
To show?
When you're, right now, when you stand and you look at the rail
Yes.
that's on those steps, where is it in relationship when you're standing?
It's about here, which is when you figure the hedge is there and such like that.
So you can't
It's a-
see it with the hedge?
Yes, you can.
Oh, okay.
I can look across to like Susan and such like that with lot of area.
But I mean, the top rail of the steps where the garage
can
is
see
going to
that.
attach, you can see that?
I can see that.
The garage will not be any higher than that. The grade will not be any higher across.
When I'm looking out my front window though, am I going to be looking at dirt and then the top? Like how?
You're gonna be
How much
look,
would it be up
from the curve, it's a 4, at this location, I believe it's a 412 grade. So in 35 feet, you're gonna have a gentle grade going up to the level part, but you're gonna be, if you can
Be like a
see,
car?
Like, am I going to be,
No, it's a gentle slope, 35-foot slope.
so when I look out my window, I will see something?
You're going to
that's
see,
dirt.
yes, you're going to see landscaping and grass and.
Promise?
Yes, I promise.
Okay.
Okay.
That was my question.
Thank you.
Because our lawn isn't that big.
But if you can see the top of the rail of the existing steps that go to the basement,
Would people be able to walk from our house up there?
well, that's something for the association.
Well, I just meant as far as, as far as
Pardon me?
height.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, I'm just saying.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Somebody went across.
It's
like,
a very gentle
I could
grade
still
up.
walk.
Yes.
It's not like it's straight up and
Yes.
then all this is up here.
It's-
I can look out my window
In fact,
of the living room and I will not be looking at a big mountain type of thing with garages.
no, you're going to be looking at a gentle slope up to the top of the.
Would I still be able to see Susan's house?
From,
I look
from-
across.
From when standing in your living room?
Yes.
Yes.
It's not going to be any higher.
No.
I will see her front door floor. Like I can see.
Well, I don't
her-
know. I'll be happy to come back to your house and
I would
look at it.
appreciate that. If you would come over and just to show
I'll
me.
be happy
Because
to.
like I said, I'm a
But I-
visual person as far as to get this.
I'd be happy to do that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
All right, I think we have to vote for the issue here.
Just so you know, that as we testified at the first meeting, our plans all comply with the township slopes. We can't build a slope greater than what the township allows. And the whole, and at the steepest location where we had all this talk about a 9-foot pole, the slope at the lowest point of the road on Luella Court to the level area meets the township ordinance. And that's what, what's being portrayed tonight is like this mound, and that's not the case.
Yes, I think that her question was a good one. And I think that if everyone around the circle were to ask that question and you could answer it to the commissioners, I think it would make it, and to us, you can't answer, tonight because you haven't, you don't have the information. But just as a suggestion, I think it would make it much clearer to everyone knowing where this would be, and then it's easier to vote and easier to come up with an educated, valid opinion. Because if that's the case with your house, it doesn't sound like it's really going to be a huge slope, and that it will change the visual quality of what you'll be seeing. But I don't know if that's true. I think that for the commissioners it would be, it'd just be helpful to everyone, I think, to really know what we're talking about, because, people are saying one thing, people are saying other things. It's hard to even evaluate it. We're looking at numbers, but...
Kaz, I have a question.
Yes,
You
Matt.
stated that, who approved the slopes? Shade Tree?
No, nobody approved the, what do you mean approved the slopes?
We just said, you just said this was...
No, I'm saying our engineer plan complies with the allowable slopes. We can't put a slope, we can't slope a grade that's greater than what the township allows.
Well, but we haven't approved anything, though. No grading permit has been submitted or anything
No, I'm
to
saying
us.
our plan complies with all allowable slope, with what's allowed under the ordinance. In other words, we're not presenting something that we would not ask for a variance because this structure creates slopes that are greater than what's allowed.
Okay.
Does that answer the?
Yeah, it does. I just wanted to clear up that-
Even at the lowest point of Luella Court, where the building is in relationship to the curb line, from the curb to the top of the level area that is going to be the Victorian Garden, we will not exceed the allowable slopes.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify that the township didn't approve. We haven't approved any of these slopes. Okay.
What I was saying is our engineer plan complies with all requirements.
Okay. No,
Does
thank
that
you. Yeah,
does that
I
make?
just wanted to clarify.
Yeah, and that's and that's at the lowest point on Luella Court, which is the inlet on the south east corner that has been talked about tonight. One thing that might also be helpful, because these photographs, if you look at these photographs, this shows the view from the Flemings and also from 15. You'll notice the height of the hedge right here, and this was taken on the road. I was standing on the road. I'm 6'3", so I'm taking the picture at 6 feet elevation, standing on the road. You'll notice that the top of the hedges is just below the front windows. And if you look at our plan, our top of our level area is well below the windows. You know, we're at the band, not at the sill of the windows right here. You see these two tall windows? The band is actually almost 2 feet lower than that. Okay, so if you look at the existing conditions now with the hedges, the neighbors on the south side of Luella Court are going to have a better vista, better view shed across than they do now with the existing hedge. And this is very helpful, because we're not going to be. It's not a steep embankment. It's not, as was described. It's a very, when it's done, it's going to look like it was part of the landscape. So I just would ask everyone to, I know there's a lot of high tensions and emotions here, but we really feel what we've done is the absolute best to address all the concerns that I think we've been at this since March. And we've been working on this since January with these plans. And I think taking all things into consideration, we really have come up with a plan that is much better. You know, we haven't even talked about what exists now with the cars and the existing garage, which is what a lot of the homeowners see right now. That 2-car garage blocks the view shed. That's all going to be open and eliminated. That blocking of the view shed is going to be eliminated. So I would just ask, and what David said earlier, is please be clear as to what your certificate of appropriateness is for tonight.
I think that I think we're voting and we're talking about the steps. I mean, that's what we're charged to do tonight.
Okay.
But I think that this is a good discussion, and I also think that it will come up. It may, I don't know, but it may come up in front of the commissioners. And I guess my point is, with this whole grade thing, it would be really helpful to know what I know it's a 2% grade and so forth, and at some point, and it's a different grade at another point. But, I mean, it would be nice to get a sense for the neighbors, I think, of how gradual it is as it goes around the corner. You know, how gradual the slope changes or what it will be. Because, you know, as you said, at one point, it's very gradual over here, and over here it's not. So,
right.
You know, you're not talking about an 8-foot or a 10-foot change all the way around, and you're not talking about a 1-foot change all the way around. So it's a gradual.
Well,
you know what I'm saying?
If I may, okay, because I think what's being lost here, but it's very important in this discussion of why we're here tonight, the connection point of the garage and the ADA ramp and the steps into the existing home, which we can alter. You know, the door into the basement is fixed. Just so everybody knows, the top of the garage, the ceiling, as you walk into the garage, the ceiling of the garage has to be higher than the existing door going into the basement. We can't change that, okay? So a lot of what's been inferred tonight is like, well, we put it as high as we possibly could, you know, to kind of slip it in under the radar. That is not the case. We took with what is existing, the existing building, and we designed a structure that would eliminate any above-ground encumbrances. The existing two-car garage, the parking lot, the trash dumpsters. These are all positive things, all things that were suggested by this board, by the Board of Commissioners, and by so many people that are in this room. And I think what has been portrayed has done us a disservice and this board a disservice, because we have engineer plans. We have had an arborist go out twice to try to preserve all the trees that we could preserve. We have acted responsibly through this whole process. And I think what has been portrayed, not just at this meeting, but a number of the meetings, is not fair and is not accurate. We cannot change how you enter the existing building. The basement door is fixed. We lowered the building and we created the headroom. That's what we were given with. We couldn't change that. And if you look at the plan, you'll see that the flagstone patio that attaches to the house, and then the actual structure of the garage, as we got 12 feet away from the house, we lowered the structure, and the ceiling of that structure is 18 inches lower. That's what allows us to put this lightweight soil on top, so that we have done everything possible to make a informed, accurate attachment for this to work, and the benefits that are going to long surpass this property will remain open space, as everybody asked for it to be from day one. And I think that's a very important point for everybody to consider. We had no wiggle room as to how we could connect that and allow people to ingress and egress from the building to go into the underground garage. Okay? Thank you.
All right, we're being asked to vote on this one issue, which is the connection to the main mansion by the garage structure and its connecting piece. And do we feel that this is an appropriate connection? That's my understanding of this particular vote.
That the existing steps, that the existing steps are not a part of the original fabric of the building, and that the covering of the basement entrance would pose no give me a word, significant alteration.
Adverse effect.
What's that? Adverse effect to the building also. And the window. That the window and the basement entrance would pose no adverse effect upon the existing structure.
Right, and the removal of the existing, you have that, the removal of the existing stairs.
Yeah.
Stairs.
Before we take a vote, did you have one more, did you want to come up and say something? Just so that we have.
Joyce Pritchard, Woodland Avenue. I would like to say, first of all, in what you're about to vote on, that it is more than the existing stairs that you are altering about the building. You're obliterating part of one of the walls. It's being completely covered, and it is changing that building. As far as the rest of the confusion and discussion that's been evident tonight, I think we look to you, our Harb, to preserve the historic fabric of our community. And when you've made a decision or made a recommendation, and then you later admit that you really weren't sure about certain aspects of it, I think you've really let us down. And you're telling us tonight procedurally you cannot reverse that decision or that recommendation, and that it's now up to us to go to the Board of Commissioners to give them our opinion and to state what has happened tonight. I think it's a shame when ordinary citizens have to be able to interpret engineering drawings and architectural drawings when they don't really necessarily have that expertise and maybe can't get it in a hurry. So what I was hearing tonight is, well, it's really too bad that, you didn't tell us this before. But we would hope that you are the experts who would have stood on that lady's lawn and been able to figure out what this structure would do to her line of vision, and not up to the individual citizens to do it. If that is the case and you can't reverse that, but you admit that you weren't really sure what was going on when you made that decision, I would ask that the members of the Harb be at that Board of Commissioners meeting. There were no members of the Harb that were at the past Commissioners meeting when the controversy came up, which caused tonight. And it's certainly fortunate that that happened, because we think that you're seeing things and hearing things that maybe you didn't hear about before. So please, if you can't reverse the decision, be at that meeting to tell them just that. Because otherwise it's up to all of these citizens again to state their points of view. But you can help in that regard, and we depend on you to do that. Thank you.
If there's discussion this board has that still gives them concern, we'd like to hear it, and we'd like to have it be a part of whatever recommendation you make tonight, even though you're approving or disapproving a certificate of appropriateness you've made based on a direction by the Board of Commissioners. As we've heard tonight, we want to get this right, and you're hearing now what is going to be presented to the Board of Commissioners. The Harb did not know everything. If they could have reversed it, they would have. So what you're hearing, you're going to hear it again. I don't know if that's what I've heard from this board, is that if you could, you'd reverse your decision. If that's the case, we'd like to hear it. We think we've had ample discussion tonight about everything, despite the direction of the commission and the chair. So we've been here long enough that I think whatever you're thinking, we want to hear it. We've had an open discussion tonight. Whether, we've been told, let's not talk about grade, but we've talked about it for 90 minutes. We wouldn't talk about it any more than that at any other meeting. So if there's something you're thinking, we'd love to hear it now, but so we don't hear it for the first time with the commissioners, and then the process begins again. So to their point, to the neighbor's point, let's hear it. If there's concern, we want to hear it.
Well, I don't know. Again, I think we have a specific charge. I don't know if we could do something to the effect that, we have, upon considering the testimony given tonight, make a motion to reaffirm the decision made at the previous meeting to accept to approve the COA.
Can we do that?
I'm not sure we can do it, but I think that addresses some of the questions that they have.
Well, the problem is right now we have it's up to the Board of Commissioners to vote on our recommendation.
Right.
I mean, that's the way it stands right now. So that's why you can't suddenly rescind. First of all, the ordinance doesn't provide for that. And if you could do it, then it throws everything out of whack, not just because of this project, but anyone that comes before this board.
Well, they've asked us to reconsider based on the steps.
You know, they asked us to clarify a certain
One particular.
a certain issue that came up. That's what they asked us to do.
Which is a reconfirmation. In effect, that's what it is.
Well, yeah, I guess so. However you want to put it. But I think the primary thing was to answer those questions.
Right.
And that's what we were supposed to do today. Which by answering the question would reaffirm our original.
I think that's what we need to do. And you know, maybe the only thing we can consider is the steps.
Yeah.
But I think they're asking us to reconfirm. And the clarification is on the issue of the steps.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess if you're going to change your vote, it would have to be based on something to do with the steps.
Well, you can reconfirm based upon the steps.
Yeah.
That's basically the vote.
I think that we could take the vote on the steps, but
Yeah.
we could verbally say how we feel about the plan that they've submitted, so that the commissioners know where we're standing too. That's not to say we should re-vote it. I don't think we should re-vote and say that we're approving or disapproving a recommendation, but I think that we can say how we feel about what's been presented. I mean, you know, I don't think that we can go back and change it.
No, you can't. You can't.
We say that the testimony regarding the steps has had no negative impact on our previous ruling.
Correct.
I mean, isn't that what we're being asked to do? I mean,
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
no.
no testimonies.
We're actually trying to vote here. We're actually trying to vote, so I think we're going to have to.
You can't take another comment?
Can you be really super
Yes,
quick?
real
Okay,
quick.
thank you.
One, your real charter is to protect a historic district. And if you've received new information that you didn't thoroughly understand, as we did, and we have any question, the BOC sent it back to you. And Mr. Curley said very specifically in the meeting that you were the generalists. You look at the big picture. I understand the ordinance, I understand the issues. But your mission is to ensure that the defining characteristics of this historic district is not destroyed or diminished.
We know that.
Thank you. So just maybe that's the picture we should look at.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
So the motion is to reaffirm our original recommendation based upon that the removal of the steps are not a contributory factor, and that the covering of the existing basement window and basement entrance poses no adverse effect upon the existing structure historically.
Yeah, I think we're getting closer.
I'm not sure I can follow exactly how this conversation's going, because I was not here for that vote, the original vote.
Yeah.
And if I had questions now, does it matter if I wasn't here for the original vote? If I wanted to have more clarification on elevations and heights and so forth, and all the things we were discussing here.
Well, the thing is, we had a legal quorum.
Yeah.
And that's what was
So that was my question, is like, you know, I can't sit here and say, yes, this has no bearing on my decision before, because I had no decision before. So how do I vote?
I don't think that that should be part of the motion. I think that we should simply vote on
Right.
the stairs, you know, what we've been asked to do by the commission, And then I think we can just verbally say whether or not we feel that what they are doing with the garage is a good thing.
Why
I mean,
why is that?
I mean,
And how does
well,
that,
isn't, because if it, I think with the.
how do you do that, I guess?
Oh, well, can't we just say it without making a motion? It's not
Oh, yeah.
anything legal, it's just our opinion on that.
Yeah, I
You
mean,
know,
yeah.
I mean, I think we should make a motion about the steps first, because that's what we've
Right.
been charged to do. So I think we should do that. And then after we do that, I think we can say how we feel about the garage as we understand it in relation to the neighborhood and to the rest of the project from what we've been given, but that doesn't have any legal or any,
Well, it just gives it gives a sense of the board.
it gives a sense of the board.
Right.
And I think it might help the commissioners know where,
Right,
what we're thinking.
right. Okay.
And so, I mean, it seems to me that with Cam, I mean, you can just give your opinion. That doesn't mean that we're voting on it.
Well, yeah, I mean, on the issue at hand, I don't think that's impacting this building in a
No.
detrimental way. So I feel that that part's fine. The elevations on the garage itself, the underground garage, are a little out of what I had in mind. I thought this was going to be a deeper piece. I would have liked to have studied a little bit. I would have liked to have looked at the entrance and seen if we could have not gone straight in, but somehow gone in a little sideways.
Oh, we talked about that.
And I wasn't here again for that, so.
We talked about that.
So I
In
think I
fact-
would have had some more
In
questions.
fact, the gentleman, I forget your name, ma'am, your husband. I think it was at the, here or somebody else, maybe it was somebody else suggested just tilting that about 45 degrees or 30 degrees so that you could enter in and no lights would be in anybody's eyes, et cetera. Actually, you offered a solution for that whole thing.
Yeah,
Well, that would have been one of the comments of mine, and if there's any way to lower this thing, can we do that? And you make that change at the connection, whatever that has to be. The connection has to be at its level because you have to get in the old building, which is
Right.
existing. But the other piece can do this.
You can go lower.
So, and there's stairs and ramps within that would have to accommodate that. So they would have been some of my comments. Probably would not have approved this plan, but it's in much better direction than anything we've seen. But in terms of the stairs and the piece that we have in front of us, I'm fine with that. The only thing that I would add to this is that there's an existing conditions and demolition plan which show stairs being removed, paths being removed, which we should say that's not going to be part of this application, nor any application. That has to be revised. And the drawing that shows the limit of the link to the existing building shows one extra window. It should show less one window.
That's just a mistake.
And, whatever we can do to lower the garage, I think that would be a positive thing. But those things that exist on drawings that were submitted should be noted, that the stairs on the west should remain, the pathways are going to remain, and the limit of link is less than shown.
Right.
See?
Yeah,
Was that true?
I think the, actually, my question was, the original plans that, we looked at weeks ago, I think it's pretty clear what the intent was there. It shows that that the connection would overlap where those steps are. So I don't know how anyone could suggest that somehow there's an issue with taking out the steps, since, that plan was approved. So I wasn't clear why the Board of Commissioners even sent this back to us.
Well, one of the board members actually said he watched the Harb tape, and he was absolutely clear on what we did. I forget what commissioner that was.
Well,
Who was
based
it?
on the drawings,
Oh.
I'd agree. I thought it was very clear
Yeah.
what was happening. With
Well,
this.
he actually watched the entire Harb.
God bless him.
Yeah, I know. I know.
True
Man has
fan.
the patience of Job. So, shall we take a vote on that first motion? Which is the original question posed by the Board of Commissioners.
So the removal of the stairs, the two above-grade stairs, the removal of the one window, and the removal of the stairwell are an appropriate change to this elevation.
And that the steps are not contributory to the house.
Yep. I would second that. Anyone else?
Yeah.
The vote?
Mm-hmm.
Vote in favor?
Aye.
All approved.
Good.
Four to none. All right, so that concludes that portion. I know there's a lot of discussion, no one's happy, but that's what we have been told to do this evening. I would like to, you have offered to say what we feel. I think you've heard what I talked about. I'd like to thank you for all the work you've done. I think it's been a hard process for you, and you've really tried to come up with something that you've been listening. So I think it needs a little more tweaking, and possibly we can do that. To people who are considering that this is a huge change, maybe the elevation's too great, maybe we can lower it some more. There are some opportunities here that enhance this area and not just being a flat surface. You do have sloping hills that are south-facing and east-facing. It does offer up opportunities for an additional experience other than just a flat plane. So I don't think there's all negatives going on here. I think it might be a little steep on the slopes on the south side, and we need to, I think, work at that and address that. And you need to get some of these neighbors' fears put under wrap, because if they do in fact have a 10-foot wall in front of them, that's not going to make anybody happy. We did some math here, and you've got, maybe it's a 9-foot grade change, but it's over 25 feet or something. So it's a gradual hill. So those are some of the things that you need to address with the neighbors, I think. But the fact that we're trying to maintain open space was our opening salvo here. This is an existing mansion that had this court surrounding it and always inward facing. That's an historical fact. That's what we want to maintain. This is starting to do that. It needs a little bit more, but I think in terms of what we started with a 24 garage block that was above grade, I think we've come quite a bit farther away from that to a better place. But like I said, I would like to see this try to go a little lower if we can. And that's an engineering calculation, just to figure out a slope to get in there. I think that's pretty much my feeling. I had some reservations after I looked at this, that you did have some height issues. But I did appreciate all the work you went into the landscaping and looking at how this could be turned into a more formal park, which is it's a Victorian element. Did I say enough?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I think that it's really come a long way. When we first looked at it, and people did talk about a covered, not a garage, but what is it? A carport. I think that this is a much better solution to that, and I think that it really, I think generally this is preserving the open space. I do think that, it's, if it could be lowered a little bit, it would be better, but I think the fact that, I think you've really done a lot. And I think, near the house, particularly near the house where we walked and we saw what the grade was, we did look at the grade at that point, and it really didn't seem that different. I also think that there's no perfect solution. I don't think that you can do nothing. I don't think that keeping the building the way it is without doing anything, and I know this isn't an option, but I don't think that keeping it the way it is an option, because it really anything that's done, whether it's Cass or whether it's someone else, changes will be made. And I feel that the building is extremely important. I wish we could comment more on the materials and so forth, but I think that, you know, it'll be, from what we saw walking around, I have to say that I was really encouraged by what would be done to the building. I think the fact that the density is lower than it was is a good thing. I think it gives the building less wear and tear, generally. You know, I like the fact that the garage is underground, although I do have to say that I didn't realize that it would be 9 feet at one point, or 10 feet, or whatever. And again, that's probably my fault for not realizing that. But overall, I think generally it's the plan is really, you know, getting there. I don't think that you can keep a neighborhood exactly the way it is in terms of the built environment or the economics or anything else. Things change over time. And that's not our decision. We're really looking at the building, we're looking at the neighborhood, and we're looking at the open space. So I think it's a good plan, except for, you know, if it could be lowered a little bit, or if it could be mitigated in some way at that one corner. This is my feeling. You know, I don't think I'd go back and reverse my decision. I know you don't want to hear that, but that's, you know, you asked for how I felt, and that's my opinion.
I agree. I mean, most important historical impact of this whole project is the house. And, you know, I think we're all very focused on saving the house. You know, the outside area, we are now moved away. We're not going to have a 24-car garage sitting up on top of that hill. You know, the present plan may not be satisfactory to everyone involved. It's certainly better than what existed previously. So I think it's, you know, we're going in the right direction.
To be honest with you, I think if a covered carport would come before us, we'd probably disapprove it because of scale factor and the look.
Yeah.
Really. Okay.
All right, anything new need to discuss?
No.
Anything old? Older?
Oh, wait. He has,
Maybe we can say that.
he has.
Yes.
Hi, Jim Schneller. I live in South Wayne, or in St. David's anyway. There's been two occasions now where, in one case, a heritage tree, and in another case, a near 30-inch beautiful spruce were both removed before plans were submitted to you, before people appeared before you. And I was wondering, do you currently ask for tree plans at all?
No, that's Shade Tree Commission.
Yeah.
I understand. Is there any way, though, that the order could be at least changed so your opinion would be included? You would have review in the instance where there was a heritage tree. It was so nice of you to include that in some way in this proceeding, and it really applies to a lot of these. You may remember a long time ago on Bloomingdale Avenue.
Well, there's actually a deeper issue where, because of zoning or one of the other commissions, it affects, say, an addition somebody was putting on. And there may be height restrictions that go up against a historical design that should be put in place. And our impact, we may say, do it this way, and zoning comes in, you got to lower it 2 feet, and it changes the design dramatically.
Oh, yeah.
For the worse. And at this stage, there's no mechanism set up where we could place our opinion in those discussions.
Stage. Right.
Hey, Jim, there is a motion within the township to get this kind of circuitous route that seems to be going on, where you go to zoning maybe, or you go here
Right.
first, you go there first. In the building department, when you get a building permit, the contractor, the general contractor, has to go into the main office and have his electrician, his plumber, his HVAC, everybody in line, everybody approved, a plan for everybody, and you submit your permit. You submit your document for permit with everything. And what we're trying to do now with all these different boards is to get board approvals, everything that you need before you go off to square one, which means if I get a demolition permit and I can tear that down, but I may not have a Harb approval or whatever, zoning approval or something else, then that's something you didn't need to do. So they're trying to get it so that they say, well, this is mine. They're trying to get every board to get the approvals done before anything goes forward. And the problem with that is that, how do you do that in a timely fashion? So that's why it hasn't been done, but that's where it's trying to go. So that these kinds of things don't happen, where there's a tree cut down and we may have had something to say about it and somebody else may have had something to say about it. So I understand what you're saying. It's frustrating, but they're working on it and we're working with them. So
Beautiful. Any input you could give in that regard, because a heritage tree, in fact, that's a historical character, and we know what the character is comprised of in Wayne. So often is these tall trees, and it's demoralizing to the neighborhood and to the citizens if they see someone altering the landscape before the townships has weighed all the possibilities. So when you say there is no cut and dry, I mean, there really has to be a case-by-case look at it. And if you could set a rule or regulation just to have a sketch plan for including canopy trees.
All I can say is they're working on it, and they do realize it's a problem. So they're working on it, and we're trying to work with them on that too. So
great, thanks.
Thank you very much.
Sorry, I just
Hey,
have
Gregor.
a quick question about the future of the Luella proposal coming to this board. And there seems to be some confusion about some of the points, and I just want there to be no ambiguity about it. If the windows are set to be replaced, 120 windows, not counting basement windows, on the building are to be replaced. Do they have to come before this board?
My opinion is no.
If it's just windows in an application, no, I wouldn't accept it as an application, because it's very clear in the Harb ordinance that if there's a demolition of a structure or an accessory structure, that comes before the Harb. Okay, if there's an expansion of the building footprint, whether it's a primary or an accessory structure, then comes before Harb. But no, windows would not, roofing would not, those types of materials. That's just the way the ordinance was originally written.
Okay.
And we're also working on that as well, to try to get into those areas.
Okay, good. What about dormer windows, which are more than just windows? They're architectural features that protrude from the building.
I think we can argue that a removal of a dormer is demolition, because it is structural.
Well,
and if you're putting one in, you're adding technically square feet.
Mm-hmm.
So
well, it would be replacement. I think, I don't know what their current plans are, but there may be replacement of the dormers with ones that look similar.
It would depend on the extent. At this point, if they're changing trims, which is kind of the most amazing thing there, we can't even talk about that. But if they're replacing the whole dormer itself, that kicks it in, I think.
Well, whatever's decided.
Here.
You got to whatever is decided applies not only to the Luella mansion, it applies to every house in the district. So if you have to come before this board because you want to change out your windows or you want to put a new roof on, you're coming before this board. And that means everybody in that district, it applies to them too.
Well, if that's
the decision that are made.
Well, changing original features should be different, I think. I mean, if someone wants to replace their asphalt roof,
That's a demolition. If that's the definition of demolition, then that's what happens.
Okay.
So, it applies to all, just does not apply just to one. So I hope all the neighbors understand that.
Right. Well, there have been several people coming, before the, previous meetings. I want to replace the columns on my porch with, ones that look just like them and that sort of thing. That seems like a really minor thing.
Well, that will come
dormers-
before us.
Well, that would
But
come.
that will come before us.
Yeah, that would come before the Harb steps. Any porch modification, that would come before Harb.
Right.
Under me, it would.
We've got,
it's
no, we've
coming
done
now.
that a number of times already. There's at least 2 or 3 people where that occurred.
Now, if
I'm
there's-
agreeing with you, but that's the way
If I put
it's
black
written.
wrought iron railings on my house. I
No,
have to
that
get
would, and
somebody's
if there's
permission.
decking, if you're taking out the deck and
Right.
putting new deck, no. But if you're taking out columns and putting in something structural, it's coming before Harb, okay?
The big, what's not clear in the Harb ordinance is the definition of repair. And the Board of Commissioners, when they adopted this ordinance, they were fully aware that normal repairs to a house should not come underneath the Harb.
Well, sure,
But-
but when you're replacing about a third of the surface area of a building is in the windows, that's pretty significant, and it's an major exterior feature.
Well, what about if you were painting your house? And then you could name a number of Harb districts very close to here where just painting your house would generate a Harb application.
Well, painting a house doesn't take away original features, so. that's
You'll
completely
be
different.
talking paint colors.
Well,
I mean, we don't want to go that way, but
Craig, we know the
that's how
shortcomings,
this stuff goes.
and we are going to work to make that a little
Yeah.
tighter. I mean, there's no question that I've had this conversation a million times. I don't want to be the sergeant of arms of the whole township, but there's some
Sure.
things that matter, and you know what matters. We know what matters. We're not quite there yet. We need to be there. We're just hoping that we can work with Kaz to do some right things, and that's
Well, nobody wants to see this succeed more than I do. The building needs help. It needs probably a new owner, new management, and fixing up. And, it should be done right, though. So, thank you.
Thank you, Greg. All right, I think you have anything else? Just with him. Okay, I think we should adjourn.
Mhm.
Good evening.
Motion to adjourn?